Hi, I'm Maia from MTF Labs, and I want to talk a little bit about using the open minds cards and how we use them to create a hypothesis. Before we do that, let's talk about why that's a good thing to do. Most people, when they want to create a new design or build a new startup, they will identify a problem and then try and invent something that they think will solve that problem. Sometimes they start with a solution and look around for problems to apply it to. But as we've already discussed on this course, people are different. Their experiences are different, and the environments that they find themselves in affect them differently. So we need more of a thoughtful and research-based approach. First, we observe a situation, a person with a condition in an environment. Let's take a person card. Brett is 22 years old and currently unemployed. He is dependable and polite, but can become very anxious. Okay, now we draw a condition card. And has a prosthetic leg. And finally, an environment, or rather what we call a disabling environment, because this is where the problem occurs. We get gym. Okay, so our first thought would be to come up with a problem or even a solution. For instance, let's make exercise bikes that work for people with a prosthetic leg, or let's add handrails to the gym stretching area to help with balance. But actually, these would be based on generalizations and assumptions. Brett is not simply a person with a prosthetic leg. Brett is currently unemployed. That might have an effect on his gym attendance or membership. He is dependable, so we can rely on him to turn up on time and not to skip classes or workout sessions. And he's polite, so maybe he's reluctant to ask for extra help that might feel like he's imposing. He can also be very anxious. So there might be things about the gym that are causing him upset or distress that we might want to think about. And yes, he has a prosthetic leg, and that is definitely something that we need to consider. But if we don't have a prosthetic leg, we may not know everything about what that entails. We might not know why Brett has a prosthetic leg, whether this is new or something he is entirely used to. We have assumptions, and we need to test those assumptions. So we start by creating a story and imagining a situation. We call this a hypothesis. In scientific research, you have a hypothesis and you test it through experimentation. If it stands up, then it becomes a theory. Here, we start with a hypothesis and we will test it by going out and doing some practice-based research, collecting digital assets. In other words, taking pictures, doing interviews, asking questions, and figuring out if our hypothesis is a good one. If it is, then we can turn it into a theory or problem that needs to be addressed. And we will get into how we do that later in the program. For now, we just need a story, the hypothesis. Here's my first suggestion. I imagine that Brett would like to go to the gym more than he does, but feels anxious about using the equipment and having to ask people for extra help when it comes to instructions that might guide him to use the machines in a way that would benefit him. That's it. I don't need to solve it. I don't need to do anything else other than maybe come up with a bunch more hypotheses. So let's try another one. We have the same cards, same person, condition, and environment. My next hypothesis is that Brett likes to swim. The gym has a pool, but getting in and out is difficult, and so is having somewhere he can remove his leg and store it to get into the water. This might be a ridiculous hypothesis. It might have some basis in reality, but we don't have to worry about that right now. We get to test this in real life when we do the research. The point is to come up with the idea about what might happen and then find out whether our assumptions are correct later on. Let's do one more with different cards. Rosa is 34 and works as a legal aid. She is empathetic, determined and assertive and has multiple sclerosis. And the environment is the beach. Okay, so my first problem is that I don't really know much about multiple sclerosis. I've heard of it, but I'm not very familiar with what it entails. And so the first thing I need to do is look it up on the internet. So it says here that it's a chronic disease of the central nervous system. It says that it's unpredictable and that some people may only be mildly affected, while others lose the ability to see clearly, write, speak, or walk. I don't know what Rosa's experience is, but since she's a made-up person, we can decide. Let's say Rosa has some symptoms that affect her day-to-day life. Walking is more difficult, and she sometimes needs help reading documents in her job as a legal aid. We know that she is determined and assertive, so let's think about her experience at the beach. My hypothesis is that Rosa likes the beach. She finds it relaxing and she loves the water. But it's a long way down to the beach. The sand is unsteady to walk on. It's a long way to the nearest toilet facilities. It's difficult to get up and down, and it's hard to carry all the things that she needs in order to get there. Also, I think she doesn't drive, so she has to navigate public transport to get to the beach. These are simple ideas, but they are good starting points. But I don't know if I'm just making assumptions or whether there is something much more difficult that I haven't been able to think of. But that's just where we need to get to at this point. That's how you come up with a hypothesis using the open minds cards. Hope that helps, and good luck.